Finally, a bit of sunshine for Graham Potter at Stamford Bridge as Chelsea win 2-0, 2-1 in aggregate against what was a perfect Borussia Dortmund in 2023. A really good, resilient victory for the London Premier League team, of course. And again, I say it again, Tom Hamilton, I'm very happy for Graham Potter. He needed this little bit of sunshine as he was struggling, obviously, during the very early reigns of his. And now Chelsea to the quarterfinals of the Champions League. Luis Miguel Echegaray, Tom Hamilton here, ESPN FC. We'll have James Ollie joining us from Stamford Bridge as well to discuss this win. But Tom, straight away, initial reaction, a very strong, good win against, again, like I said, Borussia Dortmund had won every single game this year. And finally, they lose and Chelsea through to the quarterfinals.
Well, yeah, first up, what a brilliant game. It was fantastic, like end-to-end action the whole time. And Chelsea were brilliant. The likes of Sterling, Havertz were exceptional. And even Cucurella, someone who's taken so much criticism since he moved to Chelsea. He was brilliant, especially in pressing along that left side. But for Potter, this was such a key victory for him. I think looking at the last few days, he had that Leeds game. They won 1-0. He had this tonight, 2-0 into the next round of the Champions League. And those are the sort of results which can really build foundations. And after, I think it's fair to say, a turbulent start to his Chelsea tenure, this is the biggest win by a mile for him tonight. You're looking at so many factors, looking at Havertz scoring again. Potter said yesterday in his pre-match press conference, Havertz is going to score. And then you're looking at the fact that it's the first time they've scored twice since, I think it was December the 27th. So, you're slowly seeing the momentum. You're looking at Chelsea back in the 3-4-3. You're looking at Reece James. You're looking at Chilwell. Probably a little bit of a Thomas Tuchel look to the team tonight. I think it's fair to say with the way he's using the wing backs and everything. I wonder what he's thinking. But look, it was a huge step forward for Chelsea. Massive result. And as you say, it's great news for Potter.
Absolutely, indeed. You mentioned Kai Havertz there. Of course, he was the friend of the right post today as well. As he hit the post in the first half, he hits the post in the penalty, but then it's retaken due to encroachment. He becomes a hero, but overall, a very good collective performance from Chelsea. We already got some questions. Thank you so much, everybody. So, Tom Hamilton, let's get this one going from a fan following us. Thank you so much for watching on ESPN FC. You mentioned the 3-4-3. I agree with you. I thought Thomas Tuchel was probably sitting on his couch going, what the hell? Somebody stole my playbook for tonight. But it definitely seemed like that. You had Fofana, Koulibaly, Cucurella starting right behind Ben Chilwell, who was more of a sort of advanced wingback, fullback role. Joao Felix, Kai Havertz, and Raheem Sterling up front. What did you make of this starting lineup? It was, pretty experimental, I guess, in this Graham Potter era.
Well, I think that's what sort of every lineup is now. When you've got all these new players, it's going to take time to really build that sort of consistency and build, a look, I guess, to a team when you have all of these guys coming in January and in the summer. But this is definitely, you can see the balance he's got now. You're seeing Cucurella at left centre back. They didn't really miss Thiago Silva tonight, which is, to Cucurella's huge credit. You're looking at Fofana back after injury. He's making such a big impact, and he's really helping Koulibaly there as well because of Fofana's speed means that they can push slightly higher up. You're looking at the sort of the middle two as well with Enzo Fernandez and Kovacic have blended really well together as well. And then Sterling, I mean, they could have had another couple. It was literally just half an inch for a couple of those offside calls, and they'd have had a couple more. I think what might go under the radar, but was so important, was that substitution bringing on Conor Gallagher. He really did help them sort of control the tempo again and then kind of get a foothold in the match when Dortmund had a couple of really good chances. But I think Potter got it spot on. I think you have to say, look, they really played very, very well, and they could have had about 3 by half time, and they ended up, obviously with these sort of games, there are a couple of nervy moments late on, and that's what happens when you play a team of Dortmund's quality. But they completely nullified the threat of Haller. I think you're looking at Dortmund, who they had missing tonight, Makoko. They had Julian Brandt injured early on, and of course Adeyemi who was there in the home leg. So Chelsea played very well, and I think you have to say that he got the team absolutely spot on. And it'll be, having seen this sort of way they played against Leeds, this is the Potter DNA now. That 3-4-3, you're looking at how high the fullbacks are pushing up, and that's what happens when you get Chilwell and Reece James fit again. And it allows them all to completely change. Now you're seeing sort of the team he wants to build, but equally, there are going to be, 19 odd players who want to be in that starting lineup who can't be there. That's a bigger challenge than perhaps it even is deciding what 11 to put out, because you've got so many players there now who are wanting to be playing. Look at likes of Mudryk was on the bench, Madueke was on the bench. all of these guys, and then suddenly Loftus-Cheek comes on as well, and it's such a juggling act for Potter. But wins like tonight will give him such a big confidence boost, will bring the club, a huge amount of confidence as well, and that's really what you want in these scenarios. And it's Potter had a job tonight; they needed to win 1-2-0, job done.
Yeah, managing a very big squad, specifically this kind of squad, from everything that's been going on since the Todd Boehly era, is going to be instrumental for Graham Potter. He's going to kind of act like an NFL coach, I feel, with so many players, and he got it spot on. Exactly right. Hey, Tom Hamilton, here's a stat for you. Chelsea have scored multiple goals in a match for the first time this year. So, aside from the victory, it's good to see more than just one goal. Can we see this moving ahead now, aside from the Champions League? Does it need to be more adventurous? Because I did see a more adventurous Chelsea today. Will we see this moving forward, do you think?
I think so. And I think that's what his Brighton team was renowned for. That sort of, attacking flair in a team where they played without any fear. And I think that's what we saw from Chelsea tonight. And you're seeing those front three, the understanding they're building with Felix and with Sterling and with Havertz. Havertz was absolutely brilliant. And as you say, fortunately, he made friends with the bottom of the right post, which he hit a number of times. But equally, he's such a gifted player. He offers so much. And if you can really get them playing on the front foot, I mean, that's what we like to see. So, yeah, it's a huge step forward for them, as we said. And I think they definitely need to keep this momentum going. But hopefully, from a Chelsea fan's point of view, this is a sign of things to come.
Yeah, well, from a Chelsea fan's point of view as well, they're still, they say, because we're getting another question here, Tom, and I have to agree, and I'm sure you're going to have to be patient, Chelsea fans, because I think this is going to be more of a summer situation, but Chelsea still need a striker, says this person. Are the goals spread around, or are we going to see a standout scorer from here on out? What do you think, Tom?
I think what they need to do first, which I think we're getting to the point whereby we're getting that understanding of exactly what they want to do now, but they had to have the system in place before they got a striker, because we've seen over the years, last couple of years, Lukaku didn't work. Aubameyang, he hasn't worked either. So they seemingly go for a striker and then try and fit them into, I don't know, either build a system around them or then try something completely different. So once they have the DNA of the club, once they have the complete idea, the philosophy of how they want to play and what they want to do, then they find a striker to fit that rather than other way around. But then, of course, a lot will depend on if they manage to somehow sneak into the Champions League via either winning it or, the most unbelievable run in the last few games of the season, even though they're 11 points or fourth. If, say, Osimhen becomes available over the summer, right, then you go for him. Like, he's a transformative player. But having signed so many players, it was so interesting that they didn't actually sign an out-and-out striker in January, considering they signed just about every other player on the planet. So it has to be a case now of finding out exactly what they want and then finding the striker to fit the system rather than the other way around, I think.
Yeah, and I think people need to really look at the resume of Graham Potter and know that when it comes to a striker, he's kind of an equal opportunist when it comes to, that front line. And that's exactly what you saw today. Yes, Kai Havertz was clearly the key man, but Joao Felix entered in great places. Raheem Sterling, added to the XG as well. So it'll be interesting to see how he maneuvers that, Tom, this summer, and the type of player that he brings in, because I don't think, the quintessential number 9 may be something that Graham Potter looks at, but we'll have to wait and see. Here's another stat for you, by the way. Graham Potter became just a second English manager to win 5 UEFA Champions League matches in a single season. After who, Tom Hamilton? I'll let you guess. Don't read the chat if you're already reading it. I'll give you a clue.
Yeah.
I'll give you a clue. It's a team that's doing pretty well right now, trying to fight for a Champions League spot. Manager of that team.
Who could that be then? Trying to think. Is it Sir Bobby?
Yeah, well done, Sir Bobby Robson. Excellent. Since Sir Bobby Robson, Newcastle United in 2002, 2003, that was 5 as well. All right, so let's stick with Chelsea here for a second, because this is a monumental step here, Tom. Making it to the quarterfinals of the Champions League. There's been so much criticism regarding the money that's been spent, regarding Graham Potter's strategical ideas week in and week out. He's been on the back end of some horrible treatment from some fans, death threats included. I mean, that's just like unforgivable, which is obviously a different talking point. But what do you think can be the end goal here in the Champions League for Chelsea? I mean, obviously that depends on the opponent, But with this kind of performance, can they go even further than the quarterfinals?
I think you have to say they can, yeah. I mean, I remember back in like when Potter first got the job, before those first couple of Champions League games, he was talking about how he'd never sort of managed a club in the Champions League before. So it was these sort of things where he was kind of talking about these new experiences and what he was going to go through and how, his previous experiences of these sort of nights. And he's got this idea now. He'd have been there tonight, Stamford Bridge. It was absolutely bouncing. And these are the sort of performances now where he has to take them forward. And look, he's clearly such a gifted coach, but it's a case of he's been under huge amounts of pressure. And I think where before, perhaps under the previous regime, there's every chance that he would have gone by now, isn't there, really? But you can see that they're really invested in him. They can see how gifted a manager he is. They can probably appreciate the fact that he's got all these new players he's trying to fit into the system. They're clearly a club looking on the long term rather than the short term, and that's to his benefit. But equally, there's absolutely no reason why they can't go on a run now. I mean, they played so well tonight. They just need to keep that momentum going now. And equally, keep on picking up the wins in the meantime in the Premier League. The more you do that, the more confidence you build. Unless you go to Anfield on a Sunday and lose 7-0, that seems to be one way to halt momentum if you're Man United. But from a Chelsea point of view, you think they've probably been through the blip. They've all learned from it, and now it's a case of keeping those key players fit, like Reece James, Ben Chilwell. They offer so much on both flanks. You see Pulisic back today as well. There's N'Golo Kante to come back. There's Thiago Silva to come back. Some great players there. So you really hope that they can now build on this, and it's key wins like this. The pressure was on the last two for the last two games. Leeds. And then, Dortmund are a class above. But again, he delivered. So it's a big moment for him and it's a big moment for Chelsea.
You had to mention Manchester United. Say Manchester United fans, didn't you? That's 7-0. And by the way, Chelsea do have to play Liverpool in a couple of weeks as well. So it should be intriguing to see how that works out. All right, let's take a quicker look, a more detailed look at some of the outstanding performances. I mean, one of them specifically, Joao Felix, on loan from Atletico Madrid. At this point, he remains an Atletico Madrid player, and he was great today. At the very beginning of the game, there was a little bit of a worry because he fell. Thought that maybe he turned an ankle or something, but he shook that off. But his impact on this team, Tom Hamilton, cannot be understated. It's been a very serviceable run for him since he joined Chelsea. So we have another question, by the way, from a fan. Should Chelsea do everything in their power, Tom, to keep Joao Felix permanently?
Yeah, absolutely. He's class. You saw the impact he had. Like, he works so well in this system as well. That ability to drift in off the wing as well. Like, we saw him attacking down the left early on and then sort of moving more centrally. Yeah, he's absolutely brilliant. And for whatever reason, perhaps it hasn't quite clicked in the last, I don't know, 6 months or so at Atletico Madrid. We saw his ability in the World Cup. Like, he absolutely, if Chelsea have a chance of keeping him, they definitely should. For me, I think he's just such a good player. He brings everyone else into the game as well. He could really be a sort of a cornerstone of this Chelsea team for the next decade if they manage to somehow persuade him to come along. He did say yesterday in the press conference that perhaps, Champions League football's a big factor for him. So, that win tonight's important on several levels, but equally for those players who are here, someone like Felix would experience the atmosphere, would experience the potential of the club. It was an important night for him as well. And he, for the 66 minutes or so he was on, he was fantastic. He was real danger for them. So, yeah,
at the very least, European football is a must, I would imagine, for Joao Felix. So either winning this whole thing or climbing up higher up the table. We'll have to wait and see. But no doubt about it, Joao Felix has been doing a tremendous job. Another person that's been doing a tremendous job, continues to do a tremendous job for ESPN FC, James Ollie, who looks very warmed up here at Stamford Bridge. Well, James Ollie, welcome to the show. I mean, it took 10 minutes extra for the game to begin because of business going on at Fulham Road. I went to uni near there, so I know too well how annoying that street can be. But finally, Chelsea fans can celebrate, James Ollie. Give me your reaction to this really good victory against what was a perfect Borussia Dortmund.
Yeah, it feels like, I mean, it's a massive night for Graham Potter, obviously. It felt quite a cathartic night, I think, for everyone in here, really. Just sort of, this is a club that's quite used to getting to Champions League quarterfinals, obviously won it only 2 years ago. But the way that the players celebrated at full time and a lot of the fans staying, to really revel in those celebrations, I think it says a lot about just what this club's been through the last 2 or 3 months, really since the World Cup and the dismal run of form that they've been on. And I think what will please Graham Potter is they stuck to their principles. They still tried to play their football. They didn't let the adversity in front of goal that threatened to continue again here get to them in any way. They didn't panic, even though they were behind in the tie. And I thought they thoroughly deserved this victory. And it's too early to say it's a turning point for them, but you can see the patterns, you can see the confidence just starting to come back, and this is back-to-back wins for the first time in October, and that'll be huge for them now in the weeks ahead.
Yeah, the first time this year, and multiple goals for Chelsea as well, which is also a very good thing. James, we asked Tom Hamilton this early on. I want to ask you again. We noticed, obviously, the strategy, the formation to kick off, very Thomas Tuchel-esque, I guess, 3-4-3 with Ben Chilwell going in front of Cucurella as well. And, this line of Kai Havertz on one in the middle, Raheem Sterling on the other with Joao Felix. What did you make of this formation, this strategy, specifically just because you were right there looking at how they were moving and how Potter maneuvers this with this very talented, albeit very deep squad?
Yeah, I mean, the wing-backs were the key to the game, really. I think I thought Ben Chilwell was outstanding in particular today. Really set the tone, aggressive in the tackle, was frequently in dangerous positions and really caused Dortmund problems. And Dortmund never really got to grips with the overloads in the wide areas. And, when you factor in the interplay with Felix and Havertz in particular, I thought both of those were very good tonight. It was too much for Dortmund to handle. I mean, I do think, when you think about the Thomas Tuchel era, he used to bemoan the fact quite a lot that he didn't have Chilwell and Reece James through injury. They didn't have players in the squad, particularly on the right-hand side, who could fill in. You think of even Christian Pulisic was playing out on the left wing in that wing-back system for a while under Tuchel. So, he was square pegs and round holes and all of that. So Chilwell and James were absolutely pivotal to Tuchel. And it was one of the reasons why he lost his job, that he didn't have those two available. It could prove equally important for Potter moving forward, because it really gave them a dynamic edge tonight that Dortmund couldn't cope with.
I was going to ask you also about his substitutions. They seem to be judged pretty well as well. There's the Conor Gallagher one seemed key as well. I mean, what's the sort of reception like from the people there on the ground? Are they, do you feel like you're behind? Sorry.
Well, no, I mean, it was subdued, I would say, for one or two. I think when Enzo Fernandez came off as a Zakaria, I think there were one or two just to the right of the press box here who were sort of thinking, okay, all right, well, we're winning, so we'll go with this. I think if it had gone south, that would have been perhaps raised as a potential reason for it. But I mean, how Felix coming off, I thought was a little surprising as well, given that of how well he was playing. He didn't look too pleased himself to be coming off. I thought when the ball went up with his number, you could see he was disappointment etched right across his face. But I mean, look, these changes work tonight, and really, if you go back to the Leeds game on Saturday as well, I wouldn't say they shut up shop, but they certainly look to protect what they have. I think Graham Potter knows how fragile the confidence is at the moment. He obviously knows the dreadful run of form they've been on and the effect that can have on this group of players who are still, many of them, still trying to bed into a new team. But I mean, look, Dortmund as well. I think we should probably mention the fact that they're missing two of their key attacking players. Lewis, as you said there, the bus was late. They lost Julian Brandt after 5 minutes. Pretty much everything that could have gone wrong. Obviously, didn't have their first choice goalkeeper either. So pretty much everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong for them. And I thought Jude Bellingham had a bit of an off night as well. He's obviously a hugely talented player, and you expect him to have a long and glittering career. But this isn't a night I think he'll look back on with any fondness. And when Dortmund were missing a few players like that, they needed the Bellinghams to step up and really own it, and he didn't manage to do that tonight.
Yeah, I think he felt the knock from Cucurella early on, and I think that didn't really alleviate it at all. Speaking of Jude Bellingham, James Ollie, here's a fun question for both of you. Tom, I'll ask you first, and James, you jump in. Tom Hamilton, finish the sentence for me. The next Champions League match Jude Bellingham plays will be for...
I'm going to say Liverpool, but maybe let's have a think. Yeah, probably next season if they continue, like if they build on what happened on Sunday. But I think he'd be perfect. I think he works so well with Klopp. I think he'd be absolutely brilliant in regenerating that midfield. I think if they can find the the means to get him, I think he'd be a signing.
I love it. James Ollie.
Yeah, there's a lot of confidence at Liverpool that they're going to get that deal done. I think it's interesting actually that if you see sort of a lot of Madrid-based journalists will say they're quite confident, and then there'll be a lot of Manchester City-based journalists who may say, well, the City noises are quite confident. So I think there's.
What do you mean, James? What do you mean? The three most arrogant clubs in the world feel confident about getting Jude Bellingham? That's a shocker.
I think there's just a few games being played in this transfer, and I think Bellingham holds all the aces, and he will have his pick. You would think this summer Dortmund will get a premium price for him, despite obviously he didn't have a great game tonight, but I don't think that'll affect the valuation too much. I think he will go to Liverpool. I did a story for the site a while ago, so just relaying that confidence that Liverpool have. There's a long way to go in that deal, but I do think it's significant that Liverpool didn't rush out and buy a midfielder. They've been very meticulous in not panic buying and waiting for the right player. For example, so sort of flip side of that would be Luis Diaz, who they wanted to wait until that summer to sign him, but they knew Spurs were going for him, so they made their move in January. And they have to because they don't have the same resources that Manchester City do, or even Manchester United. They're very meticulous and strategic in the way they go about their business. When I look at Liverpool's midfield, I know they won 7 the other day against United, but there's obviously a big gap there between the sort of aging workhorse players of the Milners and the Hendersons, and then the younger generation coming through, and they need someone like a Bellingham. It's got that team has got a Bellingham-shaped hole in it, and it really wouldn't surprise me the amount of work I know they've done on that deal behind the scenes. If they're prepared to accept the sort of short-term pain and the issue that they've got there in midfield, in the knowledge that come the summer, they're going to get the one they really, really want.
Yeah, undoubtedly. I totally agree with both of you per your excellent reporting. And the things that I've been hearing, Jude Bellingham to Liverpool is definitely a project in the making. All right, let's focus back on the winners tonight here, because Chelsea fans are getting angry. When are they not? Here's a question for both of you. Tom, I'll ask you first. Any players in the Chelsea squad, Tom Hamilton, who might be on the fringe of being at Stamford Bridge next season, who might be able to turn things around from now till the season ends? I guess he's asking, or she's asking, is there somebody in the squad? That's it. This is your final, audition for Graham Potter before you might, leave Stamford Bridge in the summer.
It's a good question. I think someone who was linked away a lot in January was Conor Gallagher, and I thought he played really well tonight when he came on. He brought so much sort of a new sort of calm to that midfield when he came on, and really helped win the balance there. So perhaps he could be someone you might see a little bit more of perhaps the rest of the season. But then there's the forgotten man, which is the most bizarre thing to say, but Mason Mount. So if and when he comes back as well. So I think one of those two could really help. I think the way they're sort of playing and pressing quite high, they'd really suit that system well. So I'm going to go for one of those two, but probably Conor Gallagher, I think, could be someone who could really, really help them for the rest of the season.
James Ollie, I'll probably add Christian Pulisic in that line as well. What do you think?
I was just about to do that. Yeah,
sorry, buddy.
Oh, it's all right. Oh, back to you. No, I think Mason Mount. Tom makes a good point about Mason Mount in particular. There's obviously a contract issue rumbling along in the background there, and I think his future will come to a head one way or the other this summer. Chelsea, for their part, would very much like to keep him, but Mason Mount wants the sort of numbers that Reece James had when he signed his long-term deal, that he's seen Raheem Sterling come in, and obviously a lot of these new players have come in on big wages. I think Mason Mount feels with the work that he's done and the progress that he's had in the last 2 or 3 years at this club, he deserves to be rewarded in the same way. So there is that rumbling on in the background, and I do think even though he's got another year to come on his deal, that will come to a head in the summer one way or the other. But yeah, Christian Pulisic, I mean, first appearance I think since January the 5th tonight. He would have left, I think, in January had he been fit. Had he not got that injury, Newcastle, I think, were looking at him. Manchester United were offered him at one stage, and I think he was quite open to leaving the club after the World Cup. So I can't see him being here next season. Whether he has enough game time ahead of him to be able to impact it one way or the other, only he can produce that in training to convince Graham Potter. But I think the fact of the matter is that Potter's still searching for his best team. I think it looks as though Felix and Havertz, with the way that they're starting to combine and and produce more consistent performances. And obviously, if they start scoring, then that's the sort of final piece of the jigsaw. They're going to be hard to dislodge in the team, and it's not as if they've got many competitions to continue in, and really a comfortable situation in the Premier League where they could look to rotate. But Pulisic will get probably the same sort of impact role off the bench that he had under Thomas Tuchel. If he can put himself in the shop window for the summer, that might even be the way they sell it to him and say, look, we know you're thinking about moving. We've obviously signed a lot of attacking players in the last couple of windows. It's in everybody's interest. If you can help us finish positively, you can get a better move. We can finish higher up the table, and everybody parts on good terms.
All right, we are nearly done here, but before James Ollie and Tom Hamilton leave us and we say goodbye, just two quick things. Our producer here sent us a really lovely quote here, James Ollie. I wanted your take on it regarding the penalty. Obviously, Kai Havertz took it. He hit the bottom of the right post, and then the referee came in for encroachment, and then obviously it was retaken, and Kai Havertz placed it in the same place, but albeit in a better target. Emre Can said it was the referee's fault. Absolutely arrogant on the decision to retake it. What do you make of it, James Ollie?
Well, I think in this day and age now, particularly with VAR, it probably was a penalty, but it does look a little soft to me. That isn't given a year or two ago. It's a modern day penalty, if you like. I can see why the Dortmund players were unhappy about it. I mean, the encroachment, they don't really have a leg to stand on. I mean, there were multiple players in the box at the point at which that penalty was taken. So I don't think that is an issue. But I felt like something like this was coming, to be honest, because at full time they were surrounding the referee and they were complaining, as the officials were walking off. So we're just about to go and speak to the managers now. I suspect that it won't be the only complaint we hear about the referee tonight.
Tom, really quick on it.
Yeah, completely agree with everything James said there. It looked soft. He was about a metre away from Chilwell, who was just hammered across straight into him. It's difficult, but it's a modern day penalty, and I can understand why they'd be frustrated with that. And then again, I mean, there were 5 Dortmund players in the penalty area by the time that Havertz even probably stopped on the first run up. So yeah, it's the way things are now. So Dortmund have got to get on with it, really.
Yeah, it's what I call a Gen Z penalty. Absolutely right. But anyway, before we say goodbye, tomorrow there's a massive game, and that's PSG. Obviously, we've got Tottenham hosting AC Milan, but we also have PSG traveling to Bayern Munich. So, they're both huge games, obviously, but for so many reasons, all eyeballs will also specifically be in Germany as well. But let's get the predictions from the boys here before we say goodbye. James, Ollie, let me go to you first on both games very quickly. Let's go with PSG Bayern very quickly. What do you expect there?
Well, very quickly, I will say, I think it's tough, isn't it, that PSG game? I think PSG will have enough to go through. Neymar is obviously a massive blow, but I will back them to go through. Spurs, I'm there tomorrow night. I don't know. I should be quick, and I'm conscious that the longer I talk and procrastinate, I'm not being quick and I'm taking too long. I will say Tottenham will go through. I don't think Milan are as strong as they were last season.
Interesting. Tom Hamilton, what do you think?
Bayern to go through against PSG. But the big absentee there, obviously Neymar, I think even bigger in terms of the balance of the game for Bayern Munich is Pavard not being able to play. He's so integral to that whole system. So it's going to be interesting to see how they do. And I think Spurs will go through against AC Milan.
Well, there you have it. I'm going with a PSG win, and I think Tottenham's going to just about do this in a very Spursy way, but we'll see what happens. But anyway, thank you so much for joining us on ESPNFC YouTube. James Ollie, Tom Hamilton with me, Eli Chegaray. We'll be back tomorrow as well with much more coverage, and of course, every day on ESPNFC. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and we'll see you next time. Till then, bye-bye.